Welcome back to Hotties. Today we are talking about grief. Yeah. And it's an episode that we've already recorded one time,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't what I think it needed to be.
Mm.
So we're going to re-record. And just because it's such a big topic, I wanted to do it justice. So
Yeah.
here we are again. And here we go.
Okay, here we go. Audie
Hotties.
Hotties. Yeah, welcome to the Audie Hottie podcast.
Here we are. All right, so I'm McKenna and I'm Bree, and this is Audie Hotties.
Audie Hotties. Audie Hottie, Audie Hottie, Audie Hottie.
I don't know why I introduced it.
No, I did too on the last one, so you're good.
Audie, 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 Audie. Um, yeah. Today we're talking about grief. It's kind of a big taboo topic. I feel like there's not a ton of information out there. But I really wanted to talk about it because it has been a huge part of my life in the last 2 years
Mm.
and part of like coming and doing a podcast. And I feel like it would be good to talk about some definitions around grief and why grieving is so interesting as an ADHD person.
I
So,
think that it's also a pretty othering experience, and so
mhm.
I think that's important to talk about how different it is for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that there's our society, the US, and how we grieve, and it's very individualistic. It's taboo because it's just not talked about. I feel like there's been some media that definitely dives into what grief is, but there isn't a lot of talk about it. And so when you have ADHD and are looking for that experience of how to do it, and then it's not talked about a lot, it's just kind of a recipe for I'm doing this wrong and I'm can't, yeah, it could be insurmountable. So,
Yeah.
I thought we'd start off, okay, so kind of update, kind of not, but Andrea Gibson passed away this week.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and they were a poet and huge in the non-binary queer world. Just this beautiful light who was very upfront about their grief. So I figured that I would start off with reading a poem that they wrote. And it's going to be pretty short, actually, but it is from You Better Be Lightning. And I'm going to actually, it's the poem that is Every Time I Ever Said I Want to Die. And I'm just going to read the last 5 or 6 stanzas. I think that's what they're called in poetry. One second. Friend, you are who taught me that a difficult life is not less worth living than a gentle one. Joy is just easier to carry than sorrow, and you could lift a city from how long you've spent holding what's been nearly impossible to hold. This world needs those who know how to do that, those who can find a tunnel with no light at the end of it and hold it up like a telescope to show that the darkness contains many truths that can bring the light to its knees. Grief astronomer, adjust the lens, look close, tell us what you see. So they will be missed for sure and just have so much to say about grief. And it's actually been a really beautiful experience watching their community grieve,
Mm.
uh, because there has been so much rhetoric around Andrea being someone who uh, didn't want to lose at the end of their life, and everyone's saying that like they're a winner because of all of this love that has just like been echoing and echoing throughout communities as a
Mm.
result of their death. And there's this post going around about who was in the room when they died and how it was not only their partner, but ex-partners and
Mm.
friends and family and animals. And just, I don't know, when I think of when I die, it is so like to have to be in an ending moment like Andrea's would feel so successful to me.
Mm.
So it's just beautiful to see that all of the love that has been surrounding them as they have left the earth. So
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I guess I kind of have an update around grief stuff too, just because I've realized since we talked about it the first time,
yeah.
and in general, just thinking about like how grief impacts me is that I think I do a lot of pre-grieving. Like a lot of my grief happens before something happens, and if that's partly because of overthinking.
Yeah.
My brain runs a mile a minute and solves like a billion different problems and also
Yep.
just imagines every possible like
Hmm.
scenario at once. So I'm going through some like preemptive grief for my doggie. She could be okay. I could be just, you know, going a little wild about it, but
Yeah.
she's potentially sick and going through all the doctor's visits and stuff like that. So I'm doing that pre-grieving and wish her luck.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I think we'll get into this, but you know, having those thoughts and trying to make sense of it and trying to prepare and
Yeah.
it makes total sense. And you know, I think we said this in the animal episode, but it's just like it's such a robbery having
Mhm.
animals. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
they're so wonderful while they're here.
Yeah. And
Uh,
she was my first my dog.
yeah.
Yeah, that I had as an adult. And I mean that's harder too because it's the first dog that I'm making the decisions for. It's not like our family dog and
Yeah.
my parents had to make the decisions or
That's
yeah.
a lot
Mm.
of pressure, a lot of responsibility, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
definitely hope it goes well.
yeah.
And we'll be thinking about you.
Yeah, thanks.
Would you like to talk about? See, I think that this is so hard for me to record because it is such an important topic, and I just want to do like right by it, but
Mm.
it's so personal.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way too? Like, do you feel weird talking about grief
Mm.
or
I mean a little bit.
yeah. Um, I don't know. And it's not one that I feel like we can even cover in an episode, let alone a lifetime. So maybe that's also how I'm feeling, but I guess whatever we share today is going to be on the podcast and
The,
then
the name's just gonna be Grief Part 2 out of 1,000 something.
pretty much, pretty much.
Mm.
Um, so the definition of grief is the response to major loss. Um, which, we could talk about how there's so many different kinds of grief. You just talked about anticipatory grief, over the loss of an animal. We could talk about losing people physically, like when they die,
Mm.
um, but also like losing people, whether by breakup or by divorce. Those are major losses as well. Also, grieving sense of self or where you thought you might be in life. Uh, that sort of grieving. I know people grieve about their ability to have children, or once they have children, grieving their freedom that they don't
Mm.
have. So it pops up, in so many different capacities. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that I really didn't know until the last couple years. Like I knew sadness very well.
Mm.
Like that little blue woman in Inside Out. Like she runs the show sometimes. But I would say grief is so much more vast because of the stages of grief, which I'm going to get into. But I know that you've experienced grief at a younger age than I did. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like even back to the definition of being that simple. It's the response. It's not even a specific response. It's not an expectation. It's not anything. It's just the response to a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's like no right or wrong way to do it, which I
Yeah.
think we're going to talk a lot about, me and you,
Yeah.
ADHD wise. Okay, so historically, and I say historically, but I think it's only I didn't come with dates or anything,
Oh.
or who came up with this stage.
Following the history lesson. No, we do not know.
So there are 5 stages of grief, and I think that this was coined in like the 80s or 90s by research. But there have been two more that have been more talked about just in recent history on TikTok. But Therapy Jeff, who we talked about before, is who I got these definitions from, and I feel like it is super encompassing.
But this is actually the seven
This is the
stages of
seven
grief. Yep.
stages of grief. And he made sure to remind us that grief is not linear, and sometimes you feel multiple stages at once. And if you're a real winner, you feel all seven on the same day, which I've been there many times. And then this is beautiful. He said, the pace and progress is your own.
Mm.
So I love that too.
Mm.
Okay, so first stage and or just number one of seven is shock or denial. So the major loss happens and you could feel shocked, numb, denying reality of the situation, finding ways to cope with the situation. Second stage is pain or guilt, which can feel really messy. Um, it can be where like rebound relationships come in, wanting to escape that pain, and lots of like self-blame, which could
Mm.
be just blaming yourself for what happened, ruminating, which we'll get into, and then this like false illusion of control. So by like getting into the rebound relationships or by blaming
Mm.
yourself, being able to like control the situation. Also, I got a PhD in grief after going through a breakup, I just want to say, and attachment theory.
And a ton of therapy, probably. A ton of TikTok too.
Yes, speaking of coping. Three is anger and bargaining. Spent most of my time there. Angry outbursts, going back to your ex, hyper focused on positive things.
Mm.
So, now that I've written this out, I don't understand why anger and bargaining are together because I understand anger as feeling angry, but
Mhm.
I understand bargaining as that maybe more of like the number two, where it's like that false illusion of control or trying to like I
Mm.
think of bargaining as this happened for a reason or like intellectualizing what happened about the situation.
Mm.
So interesting that they're together in this.
Yeah, I don't have any further thoughts on that.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe something will come to me.
Maybe there's like 15 stages of grief and they're all just lumped into one. Um, Number four is depression, reflection, and loneliness. Also have spent a lot of time there. This is when reality sets in. There can be overwhelming sadness, lots of reflecting on the past. For me, it's like never wanting to date again,
Mm.
or like that overwhelming thinking of it'll never work out, which I know I've said on the podcast before. So, grieving openly. Five is one of those different ones where it is like disassociation, and kind of an upward turn. So there's a lot more positivity, more optimism.
Mm.
Maybe I could love again, maybe be single for a while. But it's kind of like that toxic positivity
Mm. It's not
ish.
quite real, but
Yeah,
it's
it's an
yeah.
illusion. So disassociating, which is a coping mechanism. So it makes sense that that happens in big grief. Um, Reconstruction is number six. So that is starting to readjust to life without your ex or without the person. I'm sorry that I wrote this as like the breakup. My grief.
This is the one example that
I should have clarified that before getting into all these definitions.
no, it's good.
Dang it, this is messy.
It's okay. Mm.
um, Starting to readjust to life without the loss of whoever it was. Taking accountability, like being this. So, in contrast with the disassociation, this is way more being like in your body, in your mind, thinking
Mm.
through, um, your responsibility in the situation, thinking through what you can let go of. Um, and also looking at your past relationship. I just have to continue on it
Yep,
because I'm
it's okay.
here. But look at your past relationship with gratitude for growth or
Mm.
whatever opportunity it did bring.
It feels like you're starting to shed some of the like emotional aspect of the other stages. Like you're
Yes,
starting to get more into the logical mindset.
exactly. And being a little bit more grounded and more
Mm.
realistic, I would
Grounded, good
say.
word, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I don't think that logic and emotion are like as binary as they seem. I
Mm.
think that there's like both in a lot of these phases, but you're right, this is a lot more like logical and a lot more like hopeful, I would
Mm.
say too. And probably creating a segue for feeling more peaceful or like just making peace with your past.
Mm.
Um, and then the seventh and like final stage is acceptance. Knowing that it happened, moving on from it,
Mm.
some residual feelings of sadness. Um, but all in all, like Jeff said, we can experience multiple parts of these stages in the same hour,
Mm.
in the same day, in the same season. What I have really learned about my grief in the last couple of years is just that it moves through seasons.
Mm.
And it's almost like I remember the first, so see, now I'm getting backwards because we didn't we already recorded all of this.
So you think they know our story, but they don't.
You guys don't even know. No, so I went through a major breakup January of 2024. That changed my life. It was surprising. It was right at the end of grad school. Like I graduated in January 2024. So just a lot of transitions. So going back to seasons, I noticed that like that first year after we broke up, every new season would like bring about a whole other wave of grief. And it was almost like by the end of the year, and it was like that fall, I lessened, and then it would like come as a big wave again
Mm.
within the next season and mixed with like anniversaries and birthdays. Um, it really was like a cycle almost. And
Mm.
every cycle was different. One of my friends, actually Catherine, that was on brought about the spiral of healing. So it's like if you have a spiral, you do come back to the same spot, but you come back as a different person, or like the circumstance is different that you're coming back to. So like it's this concept that like even though you feel like you're coming back to the same place and you're never going to get through it, like you're going to, and it's going to be different every time. It already is different every time.
Mm.
You're already a different person. So I felt like that was a very gracious way for me to get through those seasons. And like
Yeah.
I would get so frustrated when like it would just resurface all over again. And I
Mm.
was like, God, I think I'm over it. In fact, it just happened this summer.
Mm.
Like, I had probably like 2 months of not feeling any sort of grief, feeling very acceptance, very hopeful. And then a situation happened that just like brought back this like huge wave that came about in anxiety, feeling depressed.
Yeah, that makes me think of something in like our physical body too, because our physical body like remembers previous injury. So some
Hmm.
people that develop like chronic pain or other things like that can be because our body remembers previous things and like brings them back up. So like say you injured your knee once a long time ago and then you injure your same ankle like the next year, you might have knee pain because your body remembers like, oh, my knee hurt. I've got to protect myself. So now you're going to feel pain so that you protect yourself, but it's
Hmm.
not even injured. It's your ankle that's injured. But like the same
Exactly.
way, a new emotional pain can
Hmm.
be completely unrelated, but can bring up completely the previous feelings, thoughts, cycles, all of that.
Yeah,
Mm.
it totally does. And I think that that is the thing about grief that I just like if we talk about anything today that I want to like walk away with, where it's like it's going to be around. There are things that are going to trigger it, and it's just like a part of life.
I think that really helped me like put some logic to it too, because I
Hmm.
don't know if you're the same, but I like to like have the logic behind why something is happening, especially emotionally.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
intellectualize?
Yeah. It's
Totally
like,
not.
I don't know, learning that like really helped me to understand like, because I would get so frustrated and like angry in those moments because I'd be like, why is this coming up again? We've already dealt with this. It's not even related.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to be feeling these things again.
Yes.
And just like knowing that our brain and our body does that to try to protect us
Yeah.
helps me to like understand it a little better.
Totally. I mean, that's a really great way of looking at it, that it is really your body and your mind trying to communicate with you and just trying to love you along the way. Even though it feels like that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
It's like why are we here again?
Mhm.
I thought we were over this. Like we did such a good job. But the fact is that like we are doing a good job just even moving through it, and grief isn't bad.
Yeah.
It really is a part of life, and I think that um there are people that go through grief earlier than others, and that's probably a very isolating, hard road to be on because either their peers are not at that level and have experienced that kind of pain or loss before or never will. I think that even though grief is a collective experience and that we all feel it, it's also so personal, individual with how each of us feel our own
Mhm.
grief. So, because this is our ADHD neurodiversity affirming podcast, grief for an ADHD person is different. It looks different. Like I said earlier, ADHD people look for ways to kind of do things, look for examples. And because grief is one of those things that is just not talked about or expressed, it can be hard to access how to
Mhm.
grieve and how to do it right, which I think we need to let go of that concept that grieving needs to be done a certain way. But, with ADHD, there's hyperfixation, rumination, lack of interoceptive skills. So it can be hard to name feelings, hard to identify sensations in your body, a high occurrence of rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and then bring grief in, and that just all can become magnified, between hyperfixating on things in the past, ruminating on something that you could have done differently, not being able to understand like what you're feeling in your body or what feeling you're feeling or how to
Mhm.
distinguish anger from sadness, or maybe you're feeling them at the same time. I remember so much of my therapy sessions was reading Brene Brown's book, The Atlas
Mhm.
of the Heart. And
Oh.
yeah, it goes through probably 100 different emotions. And me and my therapist just going through like certain emotions and being like, is this what you're feeling? Is this like,
Mm.
does this relate to how you're processing this? Which I don't know if you've ever read that book, but
No, I've read some other stuff by her, but not
yeah,
that one.
I'll
Mhm.
lend it to you. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah. I think that something I struggled with having grief at a younger age also was like not knowing when to ask for help because it felt
Yeah.
like everything in life was hard and
Hmm.
people around me weren't asking for help.
Hmm.
So like I don't know, I think that grief counseling should be just an automatic thing that everybody gets after a major loss, especially like I had a loss of a parent. Um, and like I wouldn't seek that out myself, like
Yeah.
no matter how much I was hurting or whatever. Like I just didn't think that that was like enough for that I needed to ask for help or who to ask, how. Like there was no
Yeah.
model for,
Right.
like how do I get help with this thing or do
Right.
I just, pull myself up and do it? Like
Right.
mm,
And did your brother go to counseling at all, or like mom, or
I don't think so.
yeah,
It wasn't talked about at all. Yeah. Mm.
how? Do you feel like have you gone to therapy recent or like since then and found that like there are tools to help you kind of move through that grief, or do you feel like you kind of did the best you could, that's kind of done, and now you're like on to other things? Or I don't know if that's like a
Yeah, I don't think I've necessarily figured out how to move through like grief itself
yeah,
very well yet. I've never really like relearned that, but dealing with some of the other things around it, like I had a lot of guilt for being a kid and not asking my mom about her experience. Because again, like I didn't know to like think of anyone else's experience at that age or,
yeah.
we're not really externally focused when you're
No,
young.
definitely not.
Yeah.
And after suffering a major loss and trying to like figure out how to even work with it, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total
So I've
sense.
definitely like found ways to deal with like the other things that come from that, and like
Hmm.
I don't know, some of the grief of like that grief that'll never go away, like you were
Hmm.
talking about, that my dad's not here, so
Right.
like that's always going to come up. There's never going to be like an end. Like I accept it, but it's not like it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll still move through those stages of grief in
Every
different
time there's a wedding.
ways. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's just so, I don't know, I feel like there is so much unfairness. Do you feel like it's hard to talk about him?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like especially when we're talking about like other emotional things, sometimes that'll just come up and I'm like, look, tears. I feel like the emotions are very close to the surface with that in the past for me, like with grief. Like
Yeah.
I won't really like feel strong feelings about it, but it'll just be like tick, instant tears.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
do you feel like you know what those tears are like trying to even do? Or do you just feel like
Mm-mm.
they're just here and what are they? And
Yeah, I don't know.
I know sometimes I feel like tears come out and I'm just like, what is this even? Why is this
Mine
happening?
is so rare. Like I don't ever cry like in appropriate times. So that was something I always struggled with.
Mm,
You can include this part, but so that's something I always struggled with was that I like don't feel like I have like the appropriate grieving response of
yeah.
like that I don't cry when something's happened. If anything, I seem like more like stoic and like unemotional
Hmm.
in the moment of things. Um, and so I've always struggled with like, well, if I'm not like feeling those things, does that make me, a sociopath or like
Right.
something like that? Like
Yeah.
what's wrong with me that I'm not
Right.
doing it exactly how you're supposed to like do
Hmm.
it when your only model is, people bawling their eyes out dramatically or
Yeah.
like
No, it makes so much sense to feel like you don't belong after like just being authentic, like showing up in the spaces you and like not having that external validation that you are actually doing it right. And there's
yeah.
actually not a wrong way to do it. And a lot of neurodivergent people grieve like how you have described. Just in what I've seen on TikTok and people talking about how they grieve as ADHD people, it
Mhm.
sounds like there is a lot of disconnect from emotion, a lot of revisiting emotion, a delayed emotional response, and then like an intense emotional response. So,
Mhm.
either feeling it after the major event, like years down the road, or feeling like their emotional response is inappropriate to the event that happened.
Mhm.
Which I can relate to that one a lot. But yeah, it's how does it feel to know that like people do grieve like you have grieved?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely validating,
Yeah,
especially being younger and like learning more now.
yeah.
Um, at the time, it didn't like help me very much.
Nope. Nope.
Nope, nope. But like going forward, I think it helps to like know that that's not a disturbing thing. Like that I maybe look
No,
differently when something happens or
definitely not. And, I know that you are a very caring, empathetic person, and that like everyone shows and knows their emotions differently too. It's kind of up to you to accept that about yourself, but also like surrounding yourself with people that understand that too and can like encourage
yeah.
you to love yourself where you're at.
Yeah, I feel like that can be a challenge for ADHD people with relationships, especially
Hmm.
because when something ends and you don't seem to have an external reaction to it, the response you get is kind of like, well, did you actually care? Did you like maybe you never really like loved me, or maybe you never like I don't know cared
Yeah.
about this relationship because you're not having an emotional reaction.
Yes.
And that it helps to have other people around you that are understanding of that your brain isn't necessarily in the same place
Hmm.
as people that have responses more typically.
Hmm. Yeah. And I guess what I want to say to that is that like maybe that's a really good illustration as two people that are so different breaking apart, you do
Hmm.
it differently. So even though there was a lot of care and a lot of love and it broke and ended, like y'all are going to be grieving differently, whether you're neurodivergent or not.
Yeah.
So having peace with that. And I think also having like walking away with the confidence that what you had was real and it was
Hmm.
real to you. I know that that's something that I really worked through after my breakup. Just that there was magic and there was love, and just because that was not communicated at the end doesn't mean it wasn't real to me.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard. It's hard when you're expected to perform in a certain way or expected to be a human in a certain way. I feel like grieving is like one of the most human things you can
Mm.
possibly do. Like, I feel like I didn't really even meet myself until I was in the midst of grief.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's challenging too as the person that maybe is like observing the other things happening. So like not just from like what I was talking about where I was saying like they think that I'm not having those responses,
Hmm.
but also the other way around of like, we're taught for what to look for. And so maybe you're reading like the other person's responses incorrectly on accident, and then that creates extra problems.
Hmm.
And
I think that what I'm understanding between this conversation even is that like you feel like you didn't react appropriately or like with emotion at the end of a breakup. Is that what I'm like hearing?
just in general, like general responses of grief. And then like reading another person's like responses too.
Okay. And then I'm on the like the opposite end of the spectrum where I'm the one that like broke down, cried a lot in front of my ex, other people happening. And so it's interesting because I think I would look at you and be like, I wish I could keep it in. I wish I
Mm.
could just like get on with it. And I wish that like you're grieving correctly. But then I think that like you would look at me and be like, oh my gosh, they're so in
Yeah.
tune with their emotions and like feeling this, like they're doing it correctly. And
Mhm.
I think the point is that there's no like correct
Yeah.
way to do it. Like, which again, I think just takes the confidence and like the ownership of like this is who I am and there's nothing wrong with who I am and how I am reacting to the situation. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was the best out of all the things it was best.
Was that messy? Did I tell you I'm getting a tattoo of a pomegranate because they symbolize messiness?
Oh,
Thanks.
why does that symbolize nothingness?
I don't know. I think because they are messy,
Oh,
or it's like I'm
I
gonna
know
cut
not
that.
about eating a pomegranate, so.
They're so good. They're so delicious. A couple more things just about like grieving as an ADHD person. We've talked a lot about this just with our own stories, but feelings can feel like they're too much or too overwhelming. So you might not be able to like move through the emotions or you might avoid, and the avoidance is protection. There can be like, oh, this was actually really interesting. So grief can cause regression due to emotional overwhelm and or
Mhm.
autistic burnout. And that can come with like increased sensitivities or difficulty with routines, having a hard time navigating social situations within
Mhm.
grieving. I know that like we've talked about funerals and like the right way to behave at funerals. For me with a breakup, like I just it's so interesting because I feel like I was on the verge of tears for the first 7 months.
Mhm.
Like, I just would cry like at my physical therapist appointments and at my doctor's appointments and like in public. Like, it was just so, and I wasn't even embarrassed by it. It was just so raw and like I
Mhm.
couldn't get away from it.
Did you have the experience of being like told you were too much or
Yes.
like, yeah, okay. So we're,
Big rhetoric of the breakup.
yeah, so we're like the opposite on that too, where I'm getting told that I'm not like doing enough of the right thing
Mm,
and like only doing that kind of in private. And yours is like the reverse, which I know a lot of people experience, especially with ADHD,
yeah.
being told that they're too much, they're too intense, too many feelings.
Yeah.
Mm. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the experience can kind of come from either end of that.
No, it's true. And I think that, yeah, it is interesting. I wonder if I would have like, I wonder what the grief would have looked like had there been like another way that the breakup happened or like
Mm.
different rhetoric in the breakup.
Rumination on what could have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyperfixation, intellectualizing, that's going to be
Mm.
the hitting point here. But intellectualizing everything that like could have gone differently. If I had known about attachment theory, would we still be
Mm.
together? If I had known about ADHD, would we still be together?
The what ifs.
The what ifs, thank you. And the like dichotomy, I'm gonna say
Mhm.
my favorite word, but the dichotomy of like I could have known all of this information with, oh, I didn't know that. I'm gonna do differently next time. So the push and pull of like it could have been different, but it's not different. So here we go, onward and upward.
Yeah. I think that intellectualizing is a large part of why I think a lot of ADHD people kind of not necessarily fail out of therapy, but kind of like give up on therapy is
Yeah,
because I at least get to a point where I'm like, I have thought through all these things.
yeah,
You're not asking me anything new. Like,
yeah,
I already understand all this stuff in my brain.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
and then like almost seeing yourself as like the expert
Hmm.
and the therapist isn't adding to that, or
Hmm.
when really intellectualizing is a like defense mechanism that
Totally.
is not necessarily helping.
Nope. Definitely not helping. Well, and I saw an ADHD therapist who constantly like points out the intellectualizing and
Mm,
constantly challenges it and brings about other ways and talks about like the societal components, various like intersectionalities, like being the oldest daughter, having gender play into it, all sorts of things that go with the experience where it's like, I get to be in this therapy session and not have to like explain all of the rest of the shit. Like she just gets it.
mm,
And so that was actually going to be one of my suggestions for people that are grieving or that like want mental health support is to actually find an ADHD therapist or one that is neurodiverse because I feel like there is a language there that I haven't picked up with past therapists before. And I feel like the amount of growth and healing that we've done in the last year and a half has been huge,
yeah.
comparatively to like other therapy that I've done in the past.
Yeah. Well, you
But
definitely don't want to like be in a session with someone and then be explaining what autistic symptoms are or
exactly.
what your experience is
Yeah,
on a base level, let alone like in the situation. Like you
right.
want someone that has a base understanding of where you're coming from and yeah.
Totally. You really do. And there's a lot that goes with the ADHD experience too that I think surprises me every time I kind of reflect on my grief. Like just that my sleep was so bad. Like
Mm.
I barely slept the first few months of after breakup. And if I was sleeping, it was because I was like high. There's not enough talked about like that emotions can be dysregulating or like those heightened emotions. And so
Yeah, and
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
going back to like the body and the brain's memory of things too is like you want someone that understands that there's inherent trauma in growing up being neurodivergent and
Yes.
maybe not understood and maybe not getting the resources that you needed and
Yeah.
all that. So like there's inherent trauma that your body's going to remember
Hmm.
along with all the other protective things that have developed through your life.
For sure. No,
Mhm.
it's complex and should be treated as such, and there should be room. Actually, I hate that I'm saying should so much. But like there needs to be room to show up as you're grieving as an ADHD person, if that is how your brain works, and like honoring those parts of you. And if you are working with someone to overcome your grief or to move through it, they need to also understand like what is happening for you.
Yeah, you can't move along if you're in a place of having to be the teacher
No,
along with it. So,
it just brings about more intellectualizing, which we don't need any more of that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's like I don't know. That was the gist of what I wanted to say. Sorry, today was so awkward. I think I'm feeling like peppy, so I feel weird talking
Oh,
about grief. You know
I
what
was
I
like, whoa, it's the summer. Oh,
I,
it's summer. Whoa, it's
it's
summer. Whoa, it's summer.
fine.
Whoa, it's summer.
I don't want to come across as like,
NBD.
yeah, or
Mhm.
that this isn't important, or that this is just a part of life. Like, I think grief is really hard to talk about.
Yeah. Like you said, we're coming from a culture where we don't really talk about it. So.
Yeah. I don't think there's like a right or wrong way to talk about it, but we tried for this episode. So, all right, we're gonna go.
Yeah. Do you know anything about how our signs grieve or anything like that?
I love talking about astrology.
Yeah, I was gonna say that might bring you back up.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna get me down. Well, let's look at your chart. I would say that grief would lay very much in your moon sign,
Mm,
which is not only your emotional needs, but also holds a lot of value in how you see yourself. And I forget your moon sign.
that's not the primary one, right? That's the sun sign
That's
is
the
the
sun
main thing.
sign.
Okay.
Yeah. You are. Okay. Wow. I did not know your big three was this.
Oh,
That's fascinating.
oh.
Okay, so you are a Sag moon,
Mm.
Sagittarius moon. Actually, that's probably why you and Lauren work because she's a Sag sun.
Mhm.
I'm a Sag sun too, so that's probably why we're friends. The Sagittarius as a sign is the wanderer, the philosopher, the going towards like what is next kind of on the horizon. You know, it's a fire sign, so it is quick. So when I see fire in the moon, I think of like quick emotion. But with Sagittarius, there is a depth of like philosophy and wanting to like understand why. So I do hear that in what you have
Mm.
already explained of like why am I getting over it so quick, or like is getting over it quick the right thing to do? Like you're very thoughtful about it, and that's what I would say makes a lot of sense for the Sag. And then also what I would say, since you're a Sag moon, is that you don't like to spend a lot of time in your emotions, and
Mm.
that you do like to be outside of your emotional self. And but your big three is all fire, which
Yeah.
I did not realize actually.
Aries,
Yeah.
Sag, Moon, and what's the third one?
Yeah, you're a Leo rising.
Leo rising. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the third of the big three.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I would imagine a lot of quickness for your life. And I don't like to use the word avoidant because I don't think that that is what we're talking about here, but it's like, because I think that you're acknowledging your feelings, but quickly. And
Mm.
again, nothing wrong with that. And if emotions come back around, I think that maybe you can be like curious about them.
Mm.
And also, it doesn't like bog you down. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does that
that
like
all matches
relate?
pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, astrologer right here.
What about yours?
Well, I'm a water moon. So I'm a Pisces moon, and Pisces is, I love my Pisces moon, but she is so hard sometimes. Deep in emotion, it is like an emotional sign anyway. It is intuitive, dreamy, otherworldly, and sometimes not rooted in reality.
Mm.
And because of the water elements, emotions can feel like insurmountable, or like I'm being like waited on, or like I don't have a lot of control. Like it just
Mm.
kind of swallows me, which is like a weird visual. But it is really interesting because I feel like my Pisces moon is very I can talk about my sad feelings a lot with my Pisces moon. Like
Mm.
I think that my sadness can be very consuming.
Mm.
I think my joy can as well, but I actually attribute my joy to like my Sag sun and Sag rising. I think I dip more into like non-emotional with those feelings, which is like a weird thing to say out loud now that I'm saying it. But with like part of the breakup and part of like having ADHD is that like bargaining phase and that idealistic. So that was like where I spent a lot of my time.
Mm.
And I think it is because of my Pisces moon that sometimes it's not like rooted in true reality. And there is like a lot of dreaminess of like, I could go back and have
Mm.
done this differently, or like, what if we got back together? And like, mind you, this is all like past grief that I've had. I no longer feel that way, but like, it
Yeah.
is interesting to kind of like reflect on the dreaminess aspect. And
Yeah.
anyway,
And kind of going back to like things that can help us understand what's going on in ourselves because we don't have great introspection.
hmm
Like if you believe in astrology, it can be a useful tool, it sounds like, to kind of
hmm
understand like where the different parts of your brain are coming from and
hmm
yeah.
for
Mm.
sure. And I do want to say too, like, so anger is a part of grief, and that isn't in the moon. That's actually in the Mars sign. So
Oh.
where's your Mars sign? Let's see.
Mars is Pisces.
So just what I was saying. So Pisces again is like intuitive, kind of not rooted necessarily in reality, but like dreamy, can be consuming. So I wonder if your anger is something that like either is kind of mystical for you, like you can't really make it out, or
Mm.
if it is, it's rooted in something that's like not actually part of this reality, but like another reality, or like
Hmm.
I don't know if you relate to any of that. Or if you feel consumed by anger at times, more so than like your other emotions. Do you not
I can,
relate to that?
no, I like it. I have a hard time connecting like
I know.
abstract concepts
I
to each
know.
other. Like I'm a very concrete logic thinker, and so like when I'm like, oh, I'm trying to like connect these other things.
I
Where
know.
are they?
Where are they? Hello?
But no, I do feel like a lot of that is pretty accurate. So
Yeah. And my Mars is in Cancer, so it's another water sign.
mm.
And this is one that's different than Pisces in that we actually talked about Cancer on the tarot episode, but how it's like you have your emotions and you're very good at intellectualizing them.
Mm.
And so my anger, um,
Would you say it's more intellectualized or?
yeah,
Mm.
I have a really interesting relationship with anger. It is one that I need to work on more,
Mm.
expressing it for sure. I think it is one of my major emotions that I store in my body and causes me a lot of body pain. Yeah, like I know I have it. I know it's there. I don't always know what to do with it.
Mm.
It's really interesting. So
Yeah.
that's astrology. Brought me back up, which I was already up. I wanted to go down.
Down.
Oh, what are some things that you have done
Mm.
to help your grief? Or like, I guess it's such a bit, that's such a big question. Have there been any like tools or tricks that you've used to like
Mm.
move through hard seasons?
I think that like anticipatory grief is kind of a protective thing for me. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like spreading it out.
Yeah,
Like there's less all at once if you're like preemptively, kind of planning for that thing or
for sure.
like working out all the scenarios in your head. Like then if it happens, it's not as scary. Um, I think that happens a lot. That definitely happened with my divorce. That like when I got to the end, I was like, I didn't have a big emotional reaction and was like, wow, why does this just kind of feel like flat? And it was because I had experienced the grief through like all the different phases for
Yeah.
months and months and months and like
Yeah.
got that buildup kind of out.
Yeah. Mm, which shows that you felt the grief,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Mhm.
and it was just different than how
Yeah.
you expected yourself to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I've talked about it before, but I watch sad cat videos, sad animal videos.
To make you cry.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Yeah. I just usually like heartwarming things or like there's a really good movie. What's it called? It's like Red or something. It's about a dog.
Red, Old Yeller,
No, but that would work.
Benji, my dog Skip, Marley and Me,
Nope.
Where the Red Fern Grows.
Nope.
These are all really sad
Ruby, Rescued by
movies.
Ruby.
Ruby, I just watched that actually.
That one is like a go-to. Rescued by Ruby. It's so like sad and
It
heartwarming. It just makes
is.
me cry instantly. But that's like I don't know, that's how I release. Like if I can't like figure out another way, like if I'm like, oh, I just want to cry and I can't get it out. Sometimes I'll feel so like stopped up. And that's
Yes.
it. Sometimes I gotta watch something completely unrelated but sad.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to music and have that reaction?
More so for anger, I
Okay.
think. And like definitely in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emo.
Mhm. Yep. It's totally an emo kid.
Yeah. No, I just noticed that last week because I haven't cried in a while, and that's kind of weird for me. And I feel like I'm in like kind of a dissociating phase-ish.
Mm.
Not quite there. I think I'm also like accepting. But I like realized that I was feeling sad and like couldn't find any tears. And so I just put on a song that like made me cry instantly.
Mm.
I think that it's I think that's something that I've really found helpful without like so many people to watch how they grieve and how they move through it. I feel like
Mm.
artists and art and musicians, like they really do give a really nice blueprint to follow with
Mm.
grieving, or like I say this all the time, but like I don't feel like I properly grieved until Taylor Swift's album came out, The Tortured Poets Department, and some of her lyrics just felt so it felt like she was watching me and my breakup like as they were happening and like wrote about them. And
Mm.
I don't know, there's just something kind of like you were saying about, watching a sad movie and having the access to your emotions. Like I feel like that
Mm.
art plays such a big part in grief is I guess what I want to say.
Yeah, and definitely can be through like movement too,
Yeah.
dance or exercise or whatever it is.
Yes, that's so true.
Because you got to do anything to keep from falling into the trap of distraction. I'm very, very guilty of just falling into the trap of watching TV while
I
scrolling on my phone,
know.
while doing anything but feeling the feelings.
I know. And it's not coping in a way that I think helps move through your feelings. Like,
Yeah,
yes, it is a coping mechanism. However, it's not one that is supportive of your nervous system. And
it's putting
then
a cork in it,
it is.
holding it back.
It is. And I wish I would have known about that in like the early stages of my grief or whatever. Like, they're long gone now.
Yeah.
But it's a good reminder. And I think that's what like yeah, like doing pottery brought for me in March, where it was just like this tangible thing that I put a lot of anger actually into, and it felt great. And it's like, maybe I should get back to that.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, this has been really fun, very
Yeah.
awkward. But thank you for sharing
Yeah,
and
thank
opening
you.
up. And I'm really sorry about Jules. Sweet puppy dog. Yeah.
I just don't want it to like be when I'm not there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about. Like last
Yeah.
night I let her sleep in the living room instead of in her room because I was like, what if she's like crying and I can't hear her? Or, like,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. That makes so much sense. Sweet little girl. All right, well, find your joy. That's so bitchy.
So wrong.
How
Be
about
be apologetically
find your sadness? All right, grieve authentically.
and go to therapy.
Hell yeah. Bye,
Thanks,
hottie.
hotties. Bloopity bloop bloop.
Bloopers.
Mm,
Have you heard of that before?
yeah, I feel like we've talked about it on other.
Clearly, I'm really disorganized. I thought I was so ready for today. I like have notes. I have numbers.
Mm,
We're gonna get through this. Okay. Um, so I lost my train of thought.
it's okay.
Um,
Maybe we could talk about how for uh ADHD people it looks like different
yeah,
and like that looking different feels different.
different.
It's very educated.
It has been. I don't know what I was gonna say. I lost my train of thought.
Mm.
But what were you gonna say?
Silent laughing, I love it.
Okay.
But
It wasn't that much fun. This is a really messy episode. We're just gonna throw it out there.